Well, hello, welcome to the Nathan Nephew Show. I am, of course, Nathan Nephew. Be your host for the duration of your time here on the Nathan Nephew Show. Remember, you can email me, talk@nathannephew.com. Send an email about anything you want. I'll try to take some time to respond, and, I'm really looking for your feedback, good or bad. And really just for some help figuring some of this stuff out. I mean, geez, some of these scandals, some of these bills. I mean, immigration, that's turning into a huge debacle. I mean, of course, there's a big debate going on, in the Senate right now and across the country. And I have some ideas, but there are things like how to deal with the estimated 11 million illegals that are already in this country. There's a lot of different ideas on that, and I'd like to hear some of yours. I'll give you some of mine as the show goes on. I was going to do a show tonight, and I'll just let you know this up front here. I was going to kind of avoid the immigration stuff just because it's nothing new. You hear it everywhere. I mean, you turn on the news and they're talking about immigration, right? Well, I mean, today and recently it's been gay marriage and Defense of Marriage Act and things like that. But over the last couple of weeks, months, whatever, it's been immigration. That's been the hot topic. That is the crisis of the day. I wasn't really going to talk about immigration, but then I turned on the news and I saw Representative Paul Ryan. He's a Republican from Wisconsin. If you don't remember, he was on the ticket with Mitt Romney. Former vice presidential candidate, Paul Ryan. He lost, but former candidate nonetheless. I heard him talking, and the things he said, I mean, to be frank, it pissed me off. I don't expect him to be honest because I know he's not always completely honest. Well, I should rephrase that. I would expect him to be honest, much like I would, expect Barack Obama to be honest. I know that it's not going to happen. The expectation is that we elect these people to represent us and actually have the best interest of their constituency in mind when they make decisions. But the things I heard him saying, it's hard to wrap my head around how dishonest, how you can be asked a question and, well, I'll get into it later, but this thing with border security being number one priority, as I feel it should be, as I think a lot of conservatives think it should be, for some reason our representatives don't think that that's what we need to do. And I think I know why, and I can explain that as well. It's the political correctness. I mean, we can't just close the border off, right? Right? I mean, because that's not nice. Because look, there are these, what was the word? Economic immigrants that are trying to come to this country just to get a job. Economic immigrants. And now, this wasn't a new term. I'd heard this before, but I've never quite understood where it came from. I know what it means, and when Paul Ryan said it, he was referring to illegals who illegally came into this country illegally because they wanted a job. They came here for the prospect of employment, which admittedly is one of the better reasons, one of the least unrespectable reasons, going with the Director of National Intelligence and his least untruthful answer that he gave. One of the least, offensive reasons for entering this country illegally would be to come here to actually get a job and work and make a living, as opposed to coming here to get on welfare, coming here for whatever other reason other than gainful employment. But to call somebody an economic immigrant when in reality they are illegally here, it does exactly what the left wants. It does exactly what the open borders crowd wants. And that is to take something that is actually offensive to the American way, coming across the border illegally, staying here illegally, and making it into something that actually sounds good. An economic immigrant. That sounds like a good thing. And we have Republicans. This is Paul Ryan, who claims to be one of the toughest on the budget and on immigration, changing the terms in a way that just helps the argument of the other side. At least the side that I'm not on. Maybe it is the side Paul Ryan is on. I'm really not all that sure. Supreme Court, though, before I get too far in immigration, any farther than I already have, because believe me, there is much, much more. But the Supreme Court of the United States has come down with a few, fairly big decisions. A few dealing with voting, voter ID. The one saying that a state cannot require somebody to use a state form to register to vote, that there's a federal form or a federal process, so the state cannot require it. So the state cannot require somebody to prove that they are a citizen to register to vote. They can still have that process available, but they cannot require it. So, in reality, we know that the federal government really has no incentive to check people's citizenship before they register to vote. So in reality, the states have no control over whether, an illegal, an undocumented citizen, or whatever the hell you want to call them, is registered to vote in their state. The other thing with voter laws was they overturned a law that I think was passed in 1965, and basically it was passed to quell some of the discrimination in a bunch of southern states, a couple counties here in Michigan where I am, township, municipalities here in Michigan even were affected by this, basically saying that they had to have federal approval before they changed their voting laws because they were suspected or caught discriminating in the past. Now, I mean, we're talking 30, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. Geez. 1965. Times have changed. I mean, the discrimination isn't nearly as prevalent as it was in the 50s and 60s. So times have changed, the laws have changed. Now, the Supreme Court did not prevent Congress from writing a new law. They struck down this law. They could write a new law, something similar, but they were saying that there has to be very specific evidence of current discrimination going on before they force a state or municipality to get federal permission, federal approval before they change their voter laws. I think it was a great decision. I think Texas is already taking advantage of it and already implementing voter ID laws, which I think are completely effective. Maybe not completely effective, but they're great. They definitely do more good than harm. I don't think it's really too big of a burden, to require people to have some form of ID, or in Michigan, you can fill out an affidavit and give some more proof that you're a citizen if you do not actually have something like a driver's license or a state-issued ID, which really aren't that hard to get. While all of this is going on, and while the White House tours are still not operating, you can still not tour the White House, our White House. The Obamas headed to Africa. $100 million it's estimated that might cost. And this coupled with what we see from the IRS with, their big parties and they're doing the Cupid shuffle up there and the lawyers are having a unity party because they don't get together very often, and they learn how to work with people in the workplace. We're spending $2.4 million for a 3-day conference. 3 days, $800,000 a day. What the hell are they doing for $800,000 a day? Because I could throw one hell of a party, a week-long party, and spend way less than $2.4 million. And believe me, it would probably be a lot more fun than anything the IRS can put together. But I mean, hey, we don't need to talk about it because they'll just plead the fifth. Yeah, I don't want to talk. I mean, we have another IRS employee pleading the fifth. When Congress, he's in front of a committee, they're trying to ask questions, to get to the bottom of some of these scandals. We have targeting of conservative parties, which, well, by the way, you did hear that there were some progressive groups targeted as well, right? Turns out that's just not true. I mean, it's just flat out wrong. And in fact, the IG report said that yeah, it was unfair targeting of conservative groups, religious groups, 9/12 anti-big giant socialist government groups, not progressive liberal groups. So that's interesting that just all of a sudden they come out of the work and say, oh yeah, we were targeted too. Yeah, nice try. Nice try. All right, I'm going to take a quick break. When I get back, I've got a bit more about the IRS. I want to kind of outline my very simple, really one-step plan, but I want to outline my plan for solving some of these issues that we have with the IRS. What can we do to protect ourselves from some of this massive spending that the IRS is doing and this targeting of conservative groups for a very specific political purpose, and that was to help in the election of liberals. I mean, really, what other reason was there than to get Barack Obama elected? You know, and other Democrats. It was no coincidence that it was during campaign season. It was groups that were out trying to spread the word of conservatism and the truth that big government and people like Barack Obama will not help this country move forward. But I have an idea, and, you know, the idea is not unique to me. I'm not the first one to bring this up, but it really is how I think we can fix the problem. Talk at nathannephew.com. Send me an email, and, of course, stay tuned in right here to Red State Talk Radio.
I will never forget the day my son Jeremy told me he hated me and slammed the door in my face. I'm behavioral therapist Janet Lehman. Behavior problems can turn the child you love and your life into a nightmare. That's why my husband James and I created the Total Transformation, the step-by-step program that shows you how to fix the worst behavior problems and get your child to respect and listen to you again. No matter what the behavior, defiance, backtalk, angry outbursts, disrespect, we can help you stop it. Now you can get the Total Transformation for free. All you need to do is get the program and let us know how it works for you. You can keep it forever for free.
Limited number of free programs available. Call now. 1-800-257-2873. 1-800-257-2873. 1-800-257-2873. That's 1-800-257-2873.
All right, welcome back to the Nathan Nephew Show. I am Nathan Nephew, as you know. You may know me from adoddshow.com. You can check that. I do that show with Brian. That one's live Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. I urge you to tune in there. It's, you know, more of the same political talk, but with a different view. I mean, Brian comes at things with a different perspective. He likes to pretend like he's a moderate, middle-of-the-road guy, but he really isn't. He's more libertarian than anything. He just has some pretty wacky ideas on certain things like education and publicly funded art, things like that. But he's coming around. I mean, I'm rubbing off on him a little bit. You know, he's finally seeing that if you just use logic and reason, you can, you know, a lot of the stuff that I say makes sense. But, you know, he's coming around. We'll keep working on him. That is adoddshow.com. I wanted to mention the Supreme Court. They made a couple other rulings on gay marriage, and I don't know that they were as big of rulings as we heard all day today from the left, but one was on DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act, which is a federal statute that says the federal government cannot give benefits to same-sex couples, basically. Signed into law by Bill Clinton, a Democrat, you know, in the 90s. So really not that long ago. Not that long ago that this was signed into law by Bill Clinton, a Democrat. What the Supreme Court struck down today was, or the ruling we got today was that if a state now recognizes gay marriage, so California, I'll get to why California now recognizes gay marriage, but a state like New York, let's say, recognizes gay marriage, a same-sex couple gets married in New York, the federal government must give them the same federal benefits that they would a traditional marriage. Now, I think this even applies if somebody gets married in New York and then moves somewhere else like Michigan, they'll still get their federal benefits, but they will not get state benefits. Now, this one's interesting because I don't know that there's really any valid argument that says the federal government cannot define what marriage is. I mean, they have to define it. But apparently for benefits, the sake of handing out federal benefits, the Supreme Court says you can define it as long as you define it meaning same-sex couples also. Now, I don't know how that applies to other things like polygamy and things like that. And that'll shake out, naturally. I would think that'll happen. And those will be the next appeals and the next court cases to come out. But the Supreme Court also, they found no standing on Proposition 8 from California, which Proposition 8 was a ballot initiative that was passed by the majority of the people in the state of California, basically defining marriage as, for the sake of government, defining it as a union between a man and a woman. So this was the people of California. And the Supreme Court, finding that there was no standing, so basically they didn't even see this case at all, sends it back to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which struck it down. So, I mean, essentially, Proposition 8 has been struck down. California's already planning on issuing marriage licenses to same-sex couples in the next couple weeks. So that'll happen very shortly. This one's tough because the people voted on, and in fact, the argument that we hear is that, well, a majority of people support gay marriage. Well, if that's true, then why does the court have to step in and strike down a law that was voted on by the people? If the majority of people really do support gay marriage, then why wouldn't the majority of the people have voted no on Proposition 8? I mean, that's why we have elections, and that's why we have propositions on ballots, is so the people can vote. In this case, in California, a majority of the people voted to define marriage as a union between a man and woman. Right or wrong? My stance on all of this is that the government should get the hell out of marriage altogether. Which sort of brings me to the IRS and how we can solve a lot of these problems that the IRS is causing, including tax benefits for marriage. And that is simply to just abolish the IRS. We need a very, very simple tax code, whatever you want it to be. 15%, fine, across the board. That's your income tax. Or just abolish income tax altogether. I mean, that's a fairly new concept anyway. 13 was it? So, I mean, get rid of the IRS. It's a monstrosity that really doesn't have much legal standing to exist. It's not doing any good. Get rid of it. Simplify the tax code. It should be easy. We'll, write our income on a postcard, send in taxes, good enough. I mean, instead of spending $2.4 million for a 3-day conference, instead of targeting groups for political reasons, instead of everything else the IRS is doing, we could just get rid of the IRS, get rid of all the people that work there because, well, they're not doing that well. We know that public sector jobs just drain the economy because you have to have several people working in the private sector to pay the taxes for the salary of one person, in the public sector. So, I mean, you can do the math on that one fairly easily too. Real quick, I am running out of time here, but I want to get to this. Paul Ryan, I heard him talking I don't think there's really any doubt that some immigration bill is going to pass the Senate. Paul Ryan says in the House they're not even going to look at the Senate bill. They're going to do their own thing. And he was asked, well, so the big thing was the Senate bill, and the big thing that Marco Rubio, the huge conservative, was saying was that border security comes first. And then we find out, well, no. Border security comes after 10 years or whatever, after legalization. You know, and the amendment they just passed in the Senate was saying that, yeah, there are triggers like 700 miles of fence and a bunch of money, 20,000 border agents. Well, yeah, but that's after legalization. Then we do that. Well, Paul Ryan was asked, does border security come first? He says, absolutely. We say, okay, well, so what is your bill? Well, temporary legal status. Whoa. Border security comes first, you said, right? Yes. So what is your bill? Well, first, temporary legal status. Well, that doesn't really make sense. So temporary legal status for illegals for 5 years. If the border is not secure after 5 years, which after 5 years does not mean first to me, then we revoke the legal status. Ladies and gentlemen, do you actually believe that once we give legal status to anybody, that if the border is not secure after 5 years, we will revoke their legal status? First of all, what the hell kind of position is that to put a human being in? For 5 years, you're legal, but you don't know when this is going to run out. You don't know when you will be deported because the U.S. government didn't do their job. Now, that's just one of the smallest concerns, because these people came here illegally. They don't deserve legal status. They need to get in the back of the line behind everybody who is trying to come here legally. If you break our laws, we really don't want you. I mean, it's really as simple as that to me. So after 5 years, when the border is not secure, don't you think that'll just be the next crisis in 5 years of, well, legal status for these human beings is running out in the next month, and we need to get a bill that says we'll extend their legal status. And it'll be like the debt ceiling. What we'll do, we'll just raise the legal status ceiling every 5 years, and we'll just kick the can down the road. Another 5 years, yeah, emergency bill, passed at, 1 a.m., emergency. We can't let these illegals be illegal. It's completely absurd. Completely absurd. What's going to happen, the Senate's going to pass the bill. The House is going to try to pass their own garbage. It's going to get debated, and then we're going to compromise on whatever the hell the Senate wants and the Democrats want, and there's not going to be any border security. It's going to be 1986 all over again. It's going to be 1996 all over again. We're going to have amnesty. It's not going to do any good for this country, and the Republicans who think it's going to get them votes, they're going to lose votes because they're going to vastly expand the Democrat voter base, because that's what's happening, and that's what this is all about. It's about political power. It's not about humans. It's not about human rights. It's not about the economy in the United States, because we do not need an infusion of workers in this country. We need an infusion of jobs. And to put 11 million more people in the workforce is not going to help the unemployment of the people who are already here legally, struggling to make it from day to day and struggling to find a job. And don't tell me for 1 minute that there are jobs in this country that an American won't do, because that's just not true. That is absolute bull. I keep hearing that, well, the Mexicans will do the jobs that Americans don't want to do. That's not exactly true. You pay an American a fair wage and they'll do any job. Okay, and there's several ways to allow companies to pay a fair wage. I mean, decrease fuel costs, decrease regulation, decrease taxes, all of these things that you can do. Amnesty is not one of them. And I don't care what they're saying. They're telling us, don't call it amnesty because that sounds bad. Well, it is bad, and it is amnesty when you have people who have broken the laws, who have committed felonies, who have already broken the fairly strict immigration laws that we have, which include building a fence, which is not done, by the way. You take felons and you make them legal. That is amnesty. With that, I am out of time, though. I want to remind you to stay tuned in right here to Red State Talk Radio. Check out my website, NathanNephew.com. Email me at talk@NathanNephew.com. See you next week.